Okay, all right. In the meantime, I'll also be sharing my screen with you guys. And okay, another thing that we need to note is that you may need to have either a notebook or somewhere to be noting some of the things that you may need to do on your own. This will form part of the assignments that you just need to do on your own, and should you face any challenge, you can always reach out. Then it's recommended that if you are able to follow along as we do whatever we are going to do, the better for you. If you are not able to do that, then you can ensure to do that after the training. Don't pair up the training content for so long without you going back to the content to try and do the revisions and see where you are not able to get things right. Because remember, what usually happens with when you follow a training session without you practicing, especially for something like whatever we are going to learn, you might think that things are as easy as you see them, but then not until you go to do it on your own. So just don't pile up content. Make sure that probably after the call, just do something. Write some notes if you have to, or do some practice if you have to. And that's why we are also recommending that if you can, please record the session, so that if I am to delay to compile the video and the audio, at least you have your own. All right. So the first thing we need to to appreciate about Python is that Python has quite a number of uses, and when you hear somebody saying that they are a Python developer, they may mean a lot of things, or probably they may not be able to be a resource to you. For instance, maybe you are looking for a web developer, and your friend had told you previously that they are a Python developer. But then, before you specialize on anything, before you become a web developer, a backend developer, you at least need to learn the basics. So it's from the basics that now you specialize on a certain path. So Python, they are the basics. The basics, just defining data, playing around with data, and all that. After which, you now specialize on a specific path. So from Python, we do get web developers. We also get system administrators. We also have GUI developers. And let me just give you examples. So for web developers, there is a person who has mastered a framework, a Python framework. One of them, you can talk of Django, which is the one in the pipeline. We are going to learn that. There is also Flask. It's also another popular language. It's another popular framework for Python. We also have some few others which are not so popular. You can mention Pyramid. There is also another one, I think, called Botro. So you can master one, because basically it's all about giving a website a backend. So that's for web development. So besides web development, I also mentioned about think of desktop applications. I think we are now so much into web applications, which now serve as desktop applications. But there are think of a POS. I think you guys have seen some supermarkets using POS, not the web-based. They are more as of desktop applications. So Python can also be used to do that. Yeah, there are some framework. There is the framework popularly known as there is one Ticinter. If you have ever tried to browse, you might have came across that. There is also another one known as Kiwi, PYQT. So if you happen to run any of those, then you are able to create, say, a desktop application but I think most of these things are becoming obsolete. People, I think, are turning out to building web applications which are serving the same purpose. Then think of a data analyst. So there's a person, besides doing other things related to data, they may need Python, or rather they need Python to do the analysis, and there are some modules in Python that will really help you in doing that. Think of pandas. I think there is also some other module called IPython, so that's also a person who has done Python but specialized in data. So they also it can also be used in system administration. So there are some system administration tools that uses Python language to just achieve whatever they are meant to achieve. So I think one popular one is Ansible. So the list is endless. So whenever you want to be to call yourself a Python developer, you may want to know, yes, you are a Python developer. Do you just know the mere basics, or you have mastered a framework or a module? So it's for you to tell. So there is so much. So after learning the basics, then identify your area of interest, because we can't all be everything that Python can do. So at least identify at least one. You are not limited. You can be everything if you can, but at least identify one and specialize in it. And for that reason, that's why we are here, to learn the basics and also get hold of Django and understand it the best way we can and offer solution using Django. All right. So that's it. That's just a mere introduction of Python. Python is basically a programming language, and I think we will be using English to type in the code. And all right, so that is it for Python. So the next thing we need to do is to equip our machines with the necessary tools, the necessary software, so that we are able to run Python codes on our machine. By default, we may not have the Python softwares installed on our machines, and it's for us to install them if at all we need them. So if you're on Windows, there is this website. This is where we are going to get Python. And even before we do that, maybe we can just check, because we do not need to download stuff that we already have on our system. So you can simply check from your machine if at all Python is already installed. And the way to do that, you can talk of type in, okay, I'm using the terminal. In your case, just search for CMD. You get something like this, and you'll be able to to type in some lines. So just type in Python and -v. All right, if you don't get that, then we also have an option of Python 3. All right, I think okay, let me see. Okay, let me have Python 3 version. All right, so let's use this instead of the -v. I'm not sure why -v is giving us stuff. Okay, all right, it should be either Python 3 hyphen version, or Python 3 -V. So if at all you get the version here, or you get an output like this, then at least you can be happy that Python is already installed on your system. Alternatively, I think if you're also on Windows, I think you can also search for Python, and there are some few choices that will come. So, but this is the recommended way to check if Python is already installed on your system or not. All right, so if at all it's not installed, this is the link to do that. I think I had shared it there. Please use that. And once you get hold of this page, there is this button here. Just click on download. and it will download a .exe file. Please let me know, guys, if you have Python installed on your system. That is for the guys on sorry, the guys on Windows. So for Linux, we first of all need to do an update to the system. I hope I will give a summary. I will get time to give a quick summary of this. So for those on Linux, you first of all need to do that. That is, if you check and find out that Python is not installed yet, then all you need to do, update your package repository, then run that command, and that will have Python installed on your system. Alright, please confirm by a show of, you can confirm by an emoji that you have already installed Python on your system. Yes, I would be happy if we keep in touch. I might be talking around and we already disconnected. Alright, so is it a confirmation that Python is already installed, or you are downloading the software? Alright, Mike. So, okay, something you need to note as you do the installation, once you download the software, once you download this software and you are doing the installation, there is a pop-up that will ask you whether to add Python to path. So please be sure to check on that checkbox. Otherwise, it might start giving us some issues here and there. That is especially for those who are using Windows. I think Linux doesn't have that prompt, but especially for Windows, or if by any chance if you're on Linux and you get such a prompt, please be sure to check that checkbox talking about adding Python to environment path or something like that. Alright, I would be happy if you guys confirm that you have installed it. And those who are downloading it, once you download, if you encounter a challenge, basically after downloading, you just require to right click, run as administrator, and just proceed with the prompts to have Python installed. Once you do that, please share. Alright, so I think somebody shared. It shared something which you can also use. py version. It's not always that it might respond positively, but you can also give it a trial. So Grace, you already have Python installed, right? I'll be hoping to get a response. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, so the others, okay, Mike managed. I hope you are confirming that you have already installed. So be sure to check for the version once you have installed, so that we do not just make progress on this end yet you are left behind. And just for your information, there are some steps that you can be left behind, and you are able to to catch up with the rest of the concepts. But for Python, if you are not able to install Python at this stage, then you just be watching us do stuff for the rest of the session. So just make sure that you install Python so that we don't leave you behind. I will be waiting for your updates. Anyone who is still installing? All right, thank you for that confirmation, Nimrod. Anyone left behind? All right, so I'll take the silence as a response to we have already installed Python on our system. Please don't shy away. If you are stuck, do let us know so that we don't just move thinking we are together and you happen to be left behind. So basically, this is the if you have access to the terminal or the CMD, which I hope you have, then and you confirm that Python has already been installed, then I think you have now declared that you have power to run Python, and you have power to explore whatever Python has to offer. So I think that's where we can say that your running journey for Python begins. Once you have successfully installed Python and you are able to query the version of Python on your system. So that we can just we can just do away with the downloads, with the software downloads. There is okay. What we will be doing, we need somewhere to be typing in our code. So one of the options is just typing in the Python code on our terminal. So there are two ways for now, even before we think of a code editor or where we are going to type in our code. So if you have your terminal there or your command prompt, you can just type in Python 3 and just press enter. So it will give you an interface whereby you can be able to type in your Python code. That is for both Windows and Linux. I'm hoping nobody is using Mac OS in the session. Alright, if you are there, you are stuck, please be sure to let us know. So there are times that you can install Python, especially on Windows, and you will have what do we call it? I think we call it Python GUI, whereby you just type in Python in the search area, and you get something more or less like the command prompt, but it's specifically for Python. So if you have access to that as well, then we are good to go. So this is the interface that we can type in some Python stuff and to get things done. If we think of writing some code for an application, whereby the application has, say, 100 lines of code, then I believe, even if you haven't worked with Python before to know the different options that are available, you can tell that we are not able to write the 100 lines of code on this section here. So this is basically used for either testing purposes or just practice, or when you are writing some single line of code. But when you think of writing 10, 20 lines of applications, you at least need some code editor. You need some editor. If I believe you have interacted with Microsoft Word, it gives you a section whereby you can type in your stuff to get things done. So when it comes to coding, like you need such an application whereby you can write your code and have it compiled to get the output that you want. So in that case, that's where the need for an editor comes in. So by default, if you happen not to have an editor and you have a challenge getting one, I think by default there is an editor called Notepad. I think in Windows, it should be there also in Linux, that you can type in your code, probably save it as in case you are dealing with Python, you save it as a .py file, then you can be able to compile. But we need to we need to have your experience improved, or like you have the best of experience when you are writing code. So we need some editors. We need some editors that are created in such a way that they are able to give us a good experience as developers. One is auto completion. We also need an editor that is going to give us say it adds whenever there are errors. We also need an editor that is able to compile our code, maybe within the editor. So I think Notepad, you can type in your code, Python or any other language, save your code with the extension of that particular language, but then it doesn't have a section to compile the code. So that rolls out Notepad as the editor of choice when it comes to working with any coding language. So we have quite a list of editors that we can use. I think I had checked here. So in the list we can talk of Visual Studio Code, Sublime Text, PyCharm, Atom, IntelliJ, and the rest. So the popular ones, and okay, we have the popular ones, and the one that I would recommend for us to use for this training session. But then don't stick to the one that I recommend. You can try out the others and get to feel how they work, so that you can also give a review of how you feel and why you should choose whatever editor that you choose. So the popular one, especially when it comes with working with Python, we have Visual Studio Code topping the list. We also have Sublime Text. PyCharm is also in the list. I think those are, in fact, these first three. These are the popular ones when it comes to working with Python. So I think IntelliJ, this is mostly for Java. Vim, I'm not really sure about Vim, but Vim is usually embedded on terminal. You are able to edit stuff from the terminal mostly. So for this training session, I would recommend that we use Visual Studio Code, this one, the first one that they have mentioned here. But feel free to try out the others and get an experience of how it feels. Probably try to compare if at all they have new features that probably Visual Studio Code doesn't provide. So we are also going to install Visual Studio Code. That is the editor of choice that I would recommend. But in your free time, if at all you are starting off to work with these editors, please try out Sublime Text, try out PyCharm, just try out anything that you feel like. Get the experience, then settle with one. Or just have, say, whenever you are working with Python, you know that Visual Studio is the best. When it comes to dealing with something else, you have an editor that you know works best with that. Alright, so we are going to proceed, but just be downloading Visual Studio Code, as we are going to start using it soon. So Visual Studio Code doesn't have much. Just download, right click and land as administrator and start the installation process. In case you are stuck, please be sure to let us know so that we can assist. Alright, so in the meantime, let us go back to, alright, sure, we also have Spider. I think I had forgotten that. It has been a while since I saw it. I think I had also used it some time ago. I'm not sure why I disliked it. It has been a while, so try them out and settle with the best. Alright, so let us first of all start by appreciating what we have on the screen. We have said for you to launch this Python section, Python IDE, we need to type in some stuff here. So for you to access this, just type in Python 3, press enter. Alright, and it will give you something like this. The first thing it mentions is the Python version and the rest of the information. So before we move on, I might forget something you need to know. Well, I might not forget because you get there, but let me just mention it here that I'm sure you guys have worked with file extensions. Say if you just see a file named cv.pdf, you already know that the extension of that file is a PDF. The same with The same with what? The same. We also have txt. Maybe it's a file that was saved from a notepad. It was saved as a text editor. That is txt. We also have CSV, Excel, docs for Word document, and all that. So when it comes to Python, just like any other language, Python has an extension of py. So whenever you want to save a Python file, you must have a py at the end. So you give it a name, .py. Other languages, JavaScript, think of it as JS. Think of the markup language, HTML. The extension is .html, CSS, .css, you know, all this. Java, it's .java, and all that. So each and every language has its extension. So just note it somewhere, if at all it's your first time, that Python do require a .py extension, or they use .py extensions. All right, so in here, we may need to type in some stuff here to just appreciate how Python works. And the first thing that we do type in as when we are running in language, it's hello world. Everybody wants to type in hello world as the first thing they type in their IDE. We are not exceptionals. We are going to start by doing that. So here we are going to type in exactly that. So for you to be able to display something on the console, we have this keyword. Well, we call it a keyword. We can also mention it as a function. It's a function that once you give it some, say some text or some data, it will output that on the editor. All right, so we are going to type in the hello world that everybody wants to type in when they are starting to run coding. So we are going to learn hello world. So by just talking of print some stuff, you do that and you get the output. You get the response on the terminal of whatever you have in the brackets. And remember, if you are typing in, I'm mentioning something that we are going to look at as we move on. So when typing in some text, you need to have that enclosed in quotes. So this can be double quotes or single quotes. You are free to use any, but ensure for text you have enclosed them in those quotes. And something else we need to appreciate, we can also print numbers. Think of 10, print 10, it prints 10. Think of you want to add some two numbers. Think of we want to print an addition of 10 and 15, gives us 25. So basically you are commanding Python to give you an output of something. So that command, talk of print, then give it whatever thing you wanted to print. All right. So there are basically those who might have probably started running Python and all that. So don't mind as we do the basics. So that we can all be at par. So as we mentioned, for the first 2 days, we are going to be learning just the mere basics before we now start working with Django. So don't feel it as a waste of time. Please be here with us. Mention what you think we are missing out, and it's very crucial for Django, so that at least we can all be at par. And should you also have any question, please be sure to stop me and so that we can address those concerns. So all right. So another thing that we need to mention as we are running, like the fact that we are saying print, we are printing 10 plus 15, or we are printing hello world. So I'm sure you guys have heard or worked with variables. So variables, for instance, I want to, whenever I call somebody like Mike, somebody to respond. So Mike is a name given to, that guy called Mike. He has his own features, attributes, and characteristics and all that. So when it comes to Python, we want to say, I want to print my age. But since my age can change, I want to assign that to a variable. And the way to do that, the way to assign my age, instead of say print my age as 15, I don't want to be doing that every now and then. So I want to assign my age to a variable, and the way to do that, we can mention of age being 15, so that whenever we are printing, whenever we want to talk of print, we will talk of print age, and this time we are not having the quotations because this has already been defined. All right, so if we do that, we get the output of what we had assigned to our age. And should you be tempted to put those quotes, so the interpreter will not know whether you are talking about this age, this variable, or the age of a string. So what will it do? It will return the age of a string, not of a variable. All right, I hope you got the difference. All right, so even for such arithmetics, we have this arithmetic here. So such arithmetics, you can talk of say the sum. Okay, all right. Another thing, as I was typing sum, I remembered something else. So in Python, there are some reserved keywords that you should not use to assign your you should not use as your variables. So there are some keywords that you need to be aware of. I think let me just check on something here. Check Python reserved keywords. All right, and before I forget, please make Google your friend. We also have ChatGPT, which has also come to help us achieve things very quickly. So that in fact, what we are doing, we are not whatever we are learning, we are not learning to memorize stuff. What we are trying to do is getting the concepts right, at least knowing that something exists, so that even when we are going to refer to Google, to ChatGPT and all that, at least we have an idea that something has a way of doing it. But this method, the way of achieving whatever we want to achieve, is the one that we don't know. We are not sure the command's right. But if we are given a list of commands, we are able to just pick them because we know how they look like. It's only that we haven't probably done that so many times until they become part of us. So get the idea first, then the rest of the thing you can easily Google here and there and get it right. But after you do quite some practices here and there, I'm sure you'll be able to crack these things. All right, so I think there is a function that we usually have that returns the Python keyword that you are not supposed to use. So basically, one of the keywords, think of time. Time is a keyword in Python, and should you use it as a variable, like you assign something to time, then you'll cause a confusion. And by that, when you want now to use the time module, because time is a module in Python, then it will not be able to tell whether you are using the time, which is a module, or the time that you assigned, something like whatever we have assigned here, age. So let me just know how to, okay, let me see how to get that, because you need it, we need it, we need that rest, so that we don't get ourselves assigning our values the reserved keywords. All right. Okay. Whoa. Okay, I'm not getting what I need. All right. Okay, I'll get that list. I'll get the command to get the list, and I'll be sharing that with you. So that was just by the way, I wanted just to mention that as you assign your variables, just know that some words are reserved. I'll get that command and I'll share that with you. All right, so I wanted to share something about what we are printing here. So instead of probably doing this, think of some xy. We want something like that. then we want to talk of 10 plus 5. Then when you talk of print, we're gonna print that some xy. All right. Another thing, when you are naming your variables, when giving your variables a name, it's recommended that at least give them some descriptive names, so that maybe not for this case. Whatever we are doing here, it's just to orient us on what happens with Python and all that. But you'll be writing hundreds of lines of code, and you'll be defining variables. So these variables, at least anyone, whoever looks at your code, needs to be able to know what you are talking about. So it will be so unfair if at all you are assigned to manage a code base that was done by somebody else, and you find variables where you have x is equals to something. It would be so unfair for you, because you now need to start understanding everything so that you know what this x was actually meant to mean. So just ensure, for instance, if you are talking about age, that's okay. At least it describes something. If it is context based, make sure that this age we are able to know, is it the teacher's age or the student age. So just look at the context at where you want to assign those variables, and assign the variables accordingly. All right. So the next thing I want us to look at in Python, and we're actually going to use these whatever we are using here. In the meantime, I hope you guys, those who didn't have a Visual Studio Code or any code editor, have already downloaded and installed this. If not, please be sure to let us know if at all you are stuck, so that we can be at par. All right. So the next thing I want us to talk about, we have something called data types in Python. Like we have data types. We want to know whenever we want to print something, we at least want to acknowledge whatever we are printing. What is it? Is it a number? Is it a string? Is it a list? You know. So we have the various data types that we use in Python, and well, it will depend from the resource to resource. Whenever you get these resources, how they name this data, but we are going to do it in our own style. At least with whatever style that you use, those data types will be included with the format that it's used to elaborate the data types. So the first data types, one we have, but what is data type? I think we need to understand what we mean by data type. And by data type, we are basically trying to classify whatever data that we have into some groups. We categorize, for instance, we have these as a number, we call that a number, yes. This one may not be called a number, you can call it a string. We are trying to classify data into some categories. And those categories are the ones that we are calling data types. So one popular data type, think of numbers. Numbers. When you want to add some two numbers, so we are talking about numbers. So numbers, think of 1 to, do we talk of infinity? Well, so I'm sure you have dealt with numbers in whatever field you are in. So so for the purpose of this illustration, allow me to use the X and Y stuff to just showcase some of these examples. Otherwise, it's a crime we are committing. We have already mentioned that we should resist from using such variable names, because they don't really tell us much about the data that we are representing. So numbers. So numbers, think of just any number you may think of. And numbers are further divided into some subcategories, and the popular ones are integers. So integers are basically whole numbers. And the other category, the other popular category is float. So float, we are basically talking about decimals. So if you think of decimals, the fact that we have x being 23, we can have x being 23.5. So this is a data type category, we call it numbers, but then we have some subsections whereby we mention about integers being whole numbers, and we also have float whereby we talk of decimals. So far so good. Are we together, guys? Are we together, guys? Okay, all right, thank you for the confirmation. Perfect. All right, so okay, I think I missed out on something very crucial, especially when you are starting to learn any coding language. I think I've seen people trying to build calculators and all that. So as we are talking about numbers, we are basically under a subtopic called data types, and I have mentioned about numbers. So allow me to deviate a little bit from the data types that we are talking about, but just a subsection that we would have mentioned before we got to data types. So at least be in a position to appreciate the basic arithmetics in Python. So we have done addition somewhere. We have printed some addition stuff, and we are going to mention this very quickly because it's something I think we all did it some years back. But now we did it using a pen, a book, probably some sticks and all that. But for now, we are using Python to achieve the basic arithmetics that we have always done. So we want to print just addition. Think of that being addition. If you think of subtraction, to that multiplication, we have the star. It's usually the same button as 8 on your keyboard. So to achieve that, you press on shift and 8, the key with 8. So that's multiplication. And we also have division. Let me give something that is able to get a whole number. All right, so you basically get a float. All right, so that is addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Then we have what do we have? Let me see. What do we have? All right, so what do we call this? Somebody tells us. So basically there is this percent sign. It basically gives us the remainder of when we divide. For instance, if we divide 6 by 3, the remainder is 0 because you know, we usually say that 6 is divisible by 3. But if we talk about, say, by 4, so we expect 4 to go 1 time to 6, and we have a remainder of 2. So for that, press enter, we get 2. So basically the percentage sign gives us it gives us the remainder. So if you are to note something, if you haven't interacted with this at a Python level, please be sure to just note them. They look simple, but you require them in Django somewhere. You require them somewhere. That is, if at all you haven't dealt with them, just note them somewhere. And also, just do your practice anyway. It looks so simple, but until you are not able to appreciate what they do, then that's where the problem comes in. So just take note of that, and we proceed with the data types. So we have mentioned about integers. Integers, we have said these are whole numbers. We have also mentioned about float. These are decimals. All right. So the next thing under data types, we have strings. So strings is when I talk about name, my name. What's my name? Done. So that's a string, and it's basically anything that you put in between quotations. So for instance, think of, I want a number, let me just call it num, and I want 2. So if at all I do have 2 in quotes, so this becomes a string. But 2, or rather a number that is actually an integer, doesn't have or is not surrounded by the quotes. So if you do it this way, then you have just plainly mentioned that this is a string. And if you want to prove that, let me talk of num plus 2. So if at all we were expecting this to be a number adding to 2, so we expect an output of 4. So let's see. So we see that we are not able to concatenate strings and integers. So that means that these num, that's a string. So anything between strings, that's, anything between this quotation, that's a string. All right. So the next thing, I'm hoping I'm not moving so fast. Please confirm. Okay, let me just confirm. You can just show by an emoji or raising your hand. Who is running Python for the first time, so that I don't just rush through things expecting that we are refreshing, yet we are disadvantaging some people. Who is learning Python for the first time? All right, I think that silence means we are all good. We are just doing we're just refreshing, which again it's okay. But if if it's your first time, please just let us know. That's why we are here. Anyway, we are here to learn. All right. So the next thing after we have talked about integers, we have talked about float, we have talked about strings. So the next data type in the list, it's a list. So we have data representation as a list. And how do we come up with a list in Python? So a list in Python, allow me to continue committing the same crime of using X. But that is just for this illustration. But when it comes to some serious stuff, we need to name our variables accordingly. So basically a list, we have those square brackets. So that's how to represent a list, even if it doesn't have any data. If we do that, we have a list already. That's a list. So a list might not have any data, or might be a correction of all other data types. So you can talk of a list, say, having only numbers. It's okay. You can also have another list, let me call it Y, having integers and fruits. You can also have, let me have that. You can also have a list having numbers, fruits, strings. That's also a list. Think of also a list having more than that. We are also going to talk about some other data types, such as we are going to talk about true. We are also going to talk about false. All right. So basically, all these are a list. So a list can have no data. You can have a list with no data, which is a list. We can have another one with only integers. We also have another one with integers and floats. We also have another one with integers, float, strings. So basically, a list, for you to mention a list, we just said, just ensure you have some square brackets. So that's basically a list. So whatever data that you input, it's already a list. So that's a list. And we are going to be working with with this type of data type extensively. So we are also going to look at some methods that are attached to a list. We are going to look at that. And now that we mentioned true and false here, and you noted we did not add the quotes, either the single quotes or the double quotes, but it did not give us errors. Note that if we used something like, let me show you something, let me call it MN, then here I add something like, okay, something else you might have noted is that you need to separate the entries of a list, or I think of whatever data type that you have in Python. That is for a list, and something else we are going to mention. You need to separate the entries with a comma. I think there is a language that doesn't use commas, but anyway, for Python, you need to separate the entries with a comma. So don't forget that. So if, for instance, let me just enter my name, done. Is it gonna work? So we are told that it's a name error. Name done is not defined. So that means one, done is not a variable of anything here under this console. So that's why it throws an error. So if at all this is a string, then you need to put it under these quotes. Alright. Alternatively, we can have my name, then we call them, let me have that. Then in this list, let me have it MMN. In this list, then I can pass over my name, and that works as well. And remember, don't forget the power of print. If we want to print, we just call print, input the variable name or whatever data that we want to print on the console. So that's another data type. Oh, sorry. All right. So we were just trying to elaborate on that aspect. All right. So the next thing that we need to mention, or the next data type that we need to mention in this category is a dictionary. So think of a dictionary being a collection of key value pairs. For instance, let me talk of person 1. Person 1 being probably Daniel. So you may want to know the name of Daniel, my name, or rather the name of person 1, talk of Dan, then talk about the age, talk about 15. So in this case, when you are talking, we already mentioned this area, that whenever you are talking about integers, you do not have to, not that you do not have, don't even think of having them in quotations. All right. Then so it can be a collection of all data types as long as we have the key pairs. So the key thing is having them in key pairs. So name, Dan, age, 15. Then we can talk of is Christian. All right. So is Christian. Okay. Then we can have true. You know, that's a Boolean. What else haven't we mentioned? All right, I think we mentioned enough, and that's basically a dictionary. So I think for now I think that's enough. That's enough for now. And something you need to note is that there are some data types that you can convert in between. Say you want to move from a string to integers, or you want to move from integers to string. So you can, there is that type conversion. You can convert between two data types. So it's not all data types that are compatible, because you can't be able to convert Dan to an integer. It's not technically possible. But then you can be able to convert something like 2. A 2, which is a string, to integer. So the way to do conversions, and you'll be doing this especially when okay, all right, welcome heads. So I was saying that you can be able to do a conversion between two data types, and I mentioned that not all data types can be converted from one to the other. And I gave an example that you cannot be able to convert a string, such a string, to an integer. But again, you can convert 2, which is a string, to an integer. Alright, so for instance, let me just talk of x being 2. If I print x, shows me it's a string, and I can just check type x. It gives me the type of that particular data. So it tells me it's a string, but then I want to convert it to an integer, and I want to assign that integer to y. So the way to convert, we have int. You just call the data type that you want to convert it to, then pass in that data. So we pass in x. So x, we know that x is equals to the string 2. So we passed in that, press enter. So if we print y, we get 2. And remember, okay, when we are doing some of this stuff in this console, you may decide to say print y or just call y. It will do the same thing. But when we go to Django, if at all you want to print something on the console, you need to use the keyword print. Otherwise, if you just do this, the interpreter will not know what you mean. So as long as you see us doing this on this console, please remember, don't forget the power of print. Alright, so if we try to check the type of y, we see that the conversion has already taken place. Remember, we had x as a string. We have converted it to what do we say? We have converted that to an integer. Alright, so that's conversion. I think, let me see if we can convert boolean from or rather boolean data type from boolean to strings. That's a bool. So I want to convert to integer. Let me see, because some of these things can work. So basically, okay, let us see. Integer, that's 1. False, that equals to 0. So those, if you happen to deal with data, for the statisticians, I don't know, the data scientist, you might get some data with columns of 0 and 1s, whereby 0 means false and 1 means true. So it's also something that can work. You can work with that. Alright, so which other data type can be converted from one to the other? Alright, so basically you can convert, if let me reassign x to 40. I want to convert that to integer, or rather to string. So to convert that to string, just pass in the x to the stl function, and it should return that. So you can assign it to, let's do y. We have been friendly with x and y, and that becomes that. So whenever you need to convert from one data type to another, just try to check if at all it's doable. If it's doable, go ahead and achieve that by doing this. If not, then probably find an alternative if at all it doesn't work, because it's not all of them will be able to work together. Alright, so the next thing that I want us to mention is some methods related to list, because we are going to be working with lists extensively, and we need to appreciate some of these methods so that when it comes to Django, we are able to appreciate how they work. Alright, so let me come up with a list of nums. So for nums, I consider them as numbers, and I'll be having some numbers here. See, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. All right. So the first thing that I want us to talk about is append. And just to mention, in Python, we use, if you have the hashtag before typing in something, that will be considered as a comment. So it will not be executed. So if you want to make a comment, just have a hashtag before whatever you type in. All right, so I want to appreciate what append does. It's a method used in RIST, and basically what append does, it will add a number, or it will add whatever data that we want to add at the end of the list. So this list ends here at 9. So we may want to add something to this list, and we probably want to add an element to the last option. So we have two options. Oh, okay. Let me not just limit the options to 2, but we at least have some 2 methods that we can use to do that. So one of them is reassigning nums to our list and adding whatever number that we want to add. For instance, think of 89, and that will actually add 89 to the list. But then there is a method that has been created for that to achieve the same goal. And as we are running this, I want to bring this to your attention because it's something that some may appreciate, and some may end up being confused. So there is how we are covering some of these concepts. And for instance, I just thought of that because we want to add a number to the head of this list, and that is one of the methods, and we have other methods to achieve the same thing. So when you are running online, when you are trying to gain skills here and there, you find different methods of achieving the same thing. Maybe it's a block of code meant to achieve some goal. My approach will probably be different from what you find online. My approach could be simple. The approach you get online could be simple. So it's not a matter of which one is correct and which one is wrong, because both approach will give you the same answer or the same output. So to avoid the confusion, appreciate one approach first. Then as you go by learning and gaining skills here and there, you find different methods of achieving the same thing. So just try to compare the different approach. If at all what you learned in class you feel like, whoa, this is a bit hard for me to comprehend, the one online is a bit easier, please go with that. Go with the easier one. I mean, as long as you are achieving the same thing, and you are sure that it's not really a shortcut. It's not really a shortcut. It's a method that you can verify that it's working as you may want it to work. Just go with that. So don't just start being confused and you think, whoa, in class we did it this way, online we are doing it this way, so which one should I follow? There's basically, as long as you feel it's a conventional way, then use that. All right, so let's come back here and continue with our stuff. So we have seen one of the method of appending or adding an element to the last position of the list. So the list method that is reserved for that, we have append. So append, what it does, you see, we want to append something to at the end of this list. So we talk about the variable name of our list, what we have named that list. We have named it nums.append. So what do we want to append? Let me append 45. Press enter. So basically we don't get any output, we don't get any feedback, but should we type nums, we see that 45 has been added to the head of the list. All right, so that's for append. So the next thing that I want us to talk about is that you may want to you want to add something here, but you don't want to add it to the last, to be the last in the list. You probably want to have it take some position. All right. So we have, let me mention about something that we needed to mention before the start of the session, and that thing should be indexing in a list. So when you are talking about indexes in a list, we talk about it's the position of each and every element. So for instance, we have nums. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 7 items in this list. So there is a way of coming up with these indexes. So the indexes do not start with 1. So indexes in Python, and I think other languages also do have the same concept. They do start from 0. So if at all you asked the index of 3, we have this 3 here, the index of 3, you start counting from 0, 0, 1. So 3 is index 1. I'm sure for some reasons you might have come across those jokes, those memes online, talking about indexes and all that. But if at all you didn't appreciate what indexes are, it might not have been funny to you. So indexes, they start from 0, not 1. So 0, 1. If you are asked about the index of say 7, you start with 0, 1, 2, 3. It's index 3. We know it's position 4, but it's index 3. All right. So if we want to do what? We want to put something in between 1 and 3. So start thinking of indexes, and we want to put it in between 1 and 3. So think of, we have another item here, we have some data here. So we have 0, 1. So we are having it at index 1. So let's try to see if it will work. We want to insert. So basically the keyword here is now insert. We want to insert, and we want to insert so the first so insert takes 2 arguments. One of them is the position, and the second one is or rather the first one is the index. That is the position where you want to place that that data set, or whichever item you want to add. Then the second one is the data that you want to add. So here we have said in between 1 and 3, that's index 1, and we want to add 12 there. Let's check if it's going to give us that. So we see that Python has been inserted between 1 and 3, simply because we mentioned about index 1. We want it to be index 1, and we said start counting from 0, 1. So 1 is in between here. All right, so let's insert something else. We want to insert it between 3 and 5. So in between here, we assume we have something, so it should be index 0, 1, 2, 3. All right, so let's use that. So in index 3, let's insert 100. All right, then let's print nums, and we see 0, 1, 2, 3. We have 100. All right, I hope you are together, guys. I hope you guys have not dropped out. Are we together? All right, any questions so far? Okay, all right. Please be sure to put your questions in a place we are able to access them as we complete this session, so that at least we can address a few. All right, so that is for inserting. Then you have seen me doing a head count of the items that we have in the list. That is not supposed to be the case, because probably this is data you fetch from the database, this is data you fetch from the user, and you want the server to do this on your behalf, because some of these things you get them from the user or from the DB. It's for you to write, you write a function or something that will be able to get the count. You will not be there to, to be counting for each and every user. So for you to get a count of whatever items that you have in nums, you just have to pass that. You just have to use the len function, short form of length. So have len, then pass in nums. Alright, so it returns the count of whatever items that you have here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Alright, so don't get confused. The items are 9, but the last index is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright, I hope you don't get confused. Alright, so another thing that we want to do is that we want to appreciate the work of okay. Alright, so think of, we saw how we can add an item to the last position. We did append, but then we want to remove 45. It's the last item here. We want to remove it. And how do we do that? Think of nums dot, we want to pop it. Once we do that, we get an output of it, but then if we print nums again, it's no longer there. Alright, not so popular, but it's worth noting. We can also have remove. And the remove function works like this. Remove, what do we want to remove? We want to remove, let me remove 1. So basically what remove does is that it removes the first occurrence of that number or that item. By the fact that we are dealing with numbers here, we could also be dealing with, we said that a list can comprise of numbers, floats, integers, floats, Boolean, strings, and all that. So the fact that we are using numbers, don't get confused by the numbers and think that probably these are indexes, these are the length. No, we are basically removing the item that is here. This is not the position, but we removed this entry here. So if we check nums, then we see that 1 is no longer in the list. Alright, so another thing that we may need to appreciate about list, we can think of what? We want to slice, we want to get certain elements. Alright, we want to get certain elements. So there is that concept called slicing in list. And for instance, slicing and indexing, you need to first of all appreciate what index is, how, just how to work with it, so that then you can come to slicing. So slicing basically means getting certain elements from a list. So if you are told to do a query, like or to write a command that will return the very first element in a list, the very first element. So the first element is 12, but it must not always be 12, but we may want, for instance, think of this list being a list of students. Say these are your IDs, the way you enrolled for this course. So this is the list, and these are your IDs. So it's not always that this ID is the very first one to enroll to our courses, but we want to probably appreciate the very first person who will be enrolling as the first person. I'm sure you have seen say discounts for the first 10 people, discount for the first, there is that thing. So using the same idea, like we want to appreciate the first person, and the first person will always not be the same. So the way to fetch the first person we have talked about indexes, and we gave index 1 the entry. In the first entry we give it index 0. So for us to fetch the very first entry, we talk about, that is how we do it. We talk about nums, that is the name of our list, then we pass in 0. That is the very first entry. If we do that, we get 12 because that's the first entry. Alright, if we want the second entry, we have 1, not 2, because the second one, if we start counting the index where we start with 0, 1, and we get 3. Alright, another interesting thing, we want to on a rare circumstance, we want to reward the last person. So we want something that will give us the ID or the name of the last person. So in our case, in the list that we have here, to get this entry here, we use -1. So in indexing, the fact that when counting forward, we start from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you start from the reverse, and because the list could be so long, we don't want to first count so that we can decide that the last one is 6. So the last one may not always be on index 6. This list could be more. And I'm giving you an example of a course subscribers. So it's not always that they will be 10, they will be 20. So today they might be 10, tomorrow they might be 20, 30. But we want something that will always give us the last person. Even if they were 1,000 entries, we want the very last person. So this is the ideal way of fetching the very last person in that list. Alright, hope it's making sense. I hope it's making sense. Alright, then another thing we can talk about is that we can be able to, okay, our list is called nums. Alright, we can be able to kind of concatenate items in a list. Can concatenate items in a list, but before we move there, we also need to appreciate something here. Like maybe I want to fetch from I want to fetch what? Like I want to fetch a range of these entries. All right. So think of, I want to fetch the first three elements. So let us see the various ways you can do that. And the first 3, so let me have that. So basically when you are fetching, say, a range, you might mention the start and the end, or in such a case, you may omit the start, because you are assuming you need to start from 0. Then you want the first 3. So 0, 1, 2. All right. I'm not sure if it's gonna return what I want. All right. So this basically returns the first 2. So basically, if we want to return the first 3, that is from 12, 3, and 100. These 3. So we talk about. So we don't mention anything here first. So colon 3. So that will give us the first 3. All right. So let's try to put a 0 there and see if we get the same. So it's basically returning the same, the same output. So what if we talk about starting from 3 and moving to infinity? So we don't want to specify where it stops. All right. So it starts from 5. So why 5? 0, 1, 2, 3. So it starts from index 3. But then when we have 3 ending, it kind of changes the rhythm. I'm sure you have noted that, because if we talk about from the empty entry to 3. So if we think of the indexing method, we talk of 0, 1, 2, 3. So it basically picked from 3 but backward. All right. So it's it's whatever position that we have minus 1. So how about when we have this? So it is start exactly on that particular index. Alright, so most of these are not so common, but it's good to appreciate how the slicing works, because you might find a project that requires you to do that. And as we are running whatever we are running, think of data, because whatever we are doing, we are processing data. When we get to Django, we will be fetching data from the DB to the user and correcting data from the user to the DB. So data is very crucial, and the fact that we mention about data types, that's a very key topic that you need to appreciate, because it's like think of oxygen. I mean, we can't live without it. The same way with data. Even in the outside world, we need data to work. So let's appreciate how data works, how data works in Python to make us have an easy time when it comes to now working as a backend developer. We will be processing so much data until it probably becomes part of you. Alright, another thing I want us to appreciate, and probably this is the last item in this line, I want us to see how we can concatenate two strings, or rather, sorry, two lists. For instance, we have, let me have nums2 is equals to, and by the way, like, I'm not sure if you are able to appreciate this, so I may not need to leave spaces in between. For instance, num2 is equals to, then I have a list there. Alright, it's correct. But then, doesn't look so neat. Maybe we can do some spacing. It gives it a bit, it just gives it some beauty. Looks good when you leave spaces. So, no harm leaving spaces, but if you don't feel like, then you can just do it the way we have done it here. Alright, so here I just want to have some few items there, and I want us to talk about nums plus nums2. There we go, we get a long list. So our second list has been added at the end, or rather the elements have been added at the end. So I think that's something retro to do with data types, or basically in this section we were just trying to check on list, and I believe that could be enough for us to to get us started with Django. So that may not be enough. That is just to give us that foundation, to just give us a green light. Like, there are some things that we should know. If at all you didn't know this, please know it, do practice. I'll be looking for some few exercises here and there to just we call it opening up our eyes and our mind to be able to appreciate most of these concepts. So the baseline is to keep practicing, get examples, practice them, and by the time you realize, they will be looking so obvious to you. They'll be looking so obvious to you. Alright, so I want to do something here. I want to do something. They should be okay. I just said it's the right thing, but then let's appreciate that. So let's appreciate the power of sort. So what sort does, it sorts in this order, and it basically sorts and still assigns it to the same thing. So you get or rather your variable is updated to have a list with sorted values. So those are just a few of the things that we can learn. We may not be able to cover everything, but I believe that for now we will be sufficient. But as we have said, there is so much out there to learn, I'll get some few examples that we can do to just practice, and so that we can be at par, all of us. Alright, so that's it for today's session. I know this might have been so obvious to a number of us, but I also believe that among us this team, somebody has learned something. So that's it from my end. Unless anyone has a question or a concern or even a comment, I would be happy to hear from you. If at all you learned something new, it was a refresher for you, I would be happy to hear from you guys. Anyone? Yes, Mike? Yes, Mike. Good. Wow. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for that insight. Hoping we'll still have some good concepts that we are going to enjoy. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for that. Right? Anyone else with a comment, a question? Anyone?